Is the West alienating more nations than forming alignments with it? As we're gradually seeing the shift of power into more multipolarity, the US, UK, and EU are losing more influence and exertion over nations whom they seek to control. In today's video, we'll look at one specific nation, Nigeria, that the West might soon lose as Nigeria seeks a more equitable relationship to advance itself. And we'll explore why it would be bad for Nigeria to join BRICS. Nigeria has expressed its unrelenting desire to break away from Western hegemony to become part of an economic platform such as BRICS that will allow it to pursue its own interests rather than remaining in bilateral trade agreements that do not serve it equitably. Before we proceed, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe so that we can continue keeping you informed on current global affairs. Now, let's get straight into it. Let's first understand why Nigeria is considering breaking away from Western nations and seeking alternative economic alignments. Let's explore the reasons behind this potential shift. Here are some key reasons why Nigeria is looking towards alternative economic partnerships. Nigeria, like many African nations, has a history of colonization by Western powers. This legacy has left deep scars, including economic exploitation and dependence on former colonial rulers. The colonial period saw the extraction of natural resources, forced labor, and the imposition of economic structures that favored Western interests. The colonial experience profoundly shaped Nigeria's economic landscape, establishing patterns of dependence that persist to this day. Decolonization is not just about political independence, it's also about economic liberation from the legacies of exploitation and dependency. Despite Nigeria's abundant natural resources, the economy remains vulnerable to fluctuations in global markets. Dependency on oil exports, for instance, has made the country susceptible to volatile oil prices, hindering sustainable development. Nigeria's heavy reliance on oil revenue has led to an overemphasis on the extractive sector, neglecting other potentially lucrative industries. Agriculture, manufacturing, and technology are areas where Nigeria has significant untapped potential. Strategic investments can unlock new opportunities and drive economic diversification. Nigerian goods often face barriers in Western markets, limiting the country's export potential. Unfair trade practices and tariffs further exacerbate this imbalance, stifling economic growth. Despite Nigeria's efforts to diversify its exports, trade barriers imposed by Western nations hinder market access and limit the country's ability to compete on a level playing field. Now, let's review some pertinent points on why Nigeria leaving the West could have negative consequences. Nigeria has significant economic ties with Western nations, including trade partnerships, investment flows, and development assistance. Leaving these alliances abruptly could disrupt established economic relationships, leading to short-term instability and potential long-term consequences for Nigeria's economy. Western nations provide crucial markets for Nigerian exports, particularly in the oil and gas sector. Exiting alliances with these countries could result in barriers to market access, reduced export opportunities, and decreased revenue for Nigeria's economy. Western nations are major sources of foreign direct investment in Nigeria, contributing to infrastructure development, job creation, and economic growth. Severing ties with these countries could diminish foreign direct investment inflows, hindering Nigeria's ability to address critical infrastructure needs and spur economic diversification. Western nations often provide technological expertise, know-how, and training programs that support Nigeria's development across various sectors, including healthcare, education, and agriculture. Cutting ties with these nations may limit access to valuable resources and impede progress in key areas of development. Many Western nations collaborate with Nigeria on security initiatives, including counterterrorism efforts, peacekeeping missions, and maritime security. Disengagement from these alliances could weaken Nigeria's security posture, leaving it more vulnerable to threats and destabilizing influences. Being aligned with Western nations affords Nigeria a degree of global influence and diplomatic leverage. Exiting these alliances may diminish Nigeria's voice on the international stage and weaken its ability to advocate for its interests in forums such as the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. Sudden shifts in international alliances can have domestic political repercussions, potentially exacerbating tensions within Nigeria and destabilizing the government. Maintaining stable relationships with Western nations can contribute to political stability and societal cohesion, cohesion within the country. Western nations often provide development assistance to Nigeria through various channels, including humanitarian aid, capacity building programs, and debt relief initiatives. Losing access to this support could hamper Nigeria's efforts to address poverty, inequality, and social challenges. Although we can argue that maintaining allegiance with the West may have some benefits for Nigeria in certain key aspects, we should not ignore the fact that the primary reasons for Nigeria's frustration stem from an imbalanced relationship with the West. While there may be benefits for Nigeria to uphold good relations with the West, this often comes at a cost that is not always favorable to Nigeria and its sovereignty. Let's further look at some reasons why there is perpetual strain between Nigeria and the West. Bilateral trade agreements between Nigeria and Western nations have often been contentious, with disparities in market access, tariff barriers, and unfair trade practices. Nigeria's goods face obstacles in Western markets, while Western imports flood Nigerian markets, undermining local industries and exacerbating trade imbalances. Nigeria's political landscape is complex, characterized by corruption, governance issues, and power struggles. The West has criticized Nigeria's human rights record, democratic deficiencies, and lack of transparency, leading to diplomatic tensions and strained relations. Socio-economic disparities between Nigeria and the West further strain relations. Western nations, with their advanced economies and technological capabilities, wield considerable influence in global affairs. Nigeria, despite its size and potential, often finds itself marginalized and disadvantaged in international negotiations and economic partnerships. In conclusion, upon reflecting on the current dynamics concerning Nigeria's relations with the West, it is unsurprising that the nation's consideration of alternative economic alignments reflects a desire to assert its sovereignty, diversify its economy, and pursue sustainable development. Let us know what your thoughts are on Nigeria's concerted assertion of wanting to join BRICS. Should the move take place sooner rather than later, or should Nigeria rethink its strategy first?